like many, saw Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and I heard the horror stories of how Cyberpunk was on release, and was like, yeah, I'm good. No need to play that. Not a big CJ Project Red guy myself. Never played any of the Witcher games, so like had very little involvement with the company overall. But Edge Runners, being one of the best animated series I saw that year, um, kind of put me in a place where like, huh, like I know this is not really the story of the game, but like the world seems so fun. Why not give it a shot? So after Edge Runners finished its run, I started playing Cyberpunk, and it was good. Like it's good. It's a good game. When I played it, now on release, I'm sure it probably was the worst thing in the world because it didn't run. But they fixed the game, and it was good. It was fun, and I enjoyed it. I like. Is it perfect? No. Is it the greatest thing I've ever played? No. But was it a very good 50 hours? Absolutely. I ended up doing is almost pretty much everything I could in the game. Every side thing, every main story quest, trying to finish all the character arcs before I finally picked my ending, where I just became the internet. And let Johnny live out the rest of his days in my body, because like me and my friends were doing different endings, and I kind of decided I want to become the internet. But that was Cyberpunk, and you know, Phantom Liberty came out. I hadn't played Cyberpunk since I beat it. Didn't really touch it. It wasn't really a game that I was like, yeah, let's replay it. It's got some replayability. Let me play all the endings. I'm like, I got the ending I got. I was satisfied. But Phantom Liberty came out, and Idris Elba was right. The game was fixed. I think the biggest takeaway when it comes to Phantom Liberty is that the game is still incredibly fun. Like, I would go out through the Dogtown area and do all the little random side quests of killing bad guys and testing out the new powers, and like, I still think the game's very fun. Like, that has not been diminished at all by the complete switch up of everything. Like, the game is still incredibly fun with a lot of incredible sequences and gameplay aspects that are just fun. Like, I'm not big on open world like shooters. Like, I'm not the hugest on GTA personally. No, I'd like Fallout New Vegas, and it's kind of hit or miss really with the open world thing for me. Like, some of them are very fun to me, some of them are not. Some of the old Assassin's Creed games are very fun, some of them aren't. Like, the open world thing is a good idea. It's just whether you can make that world engaging and exciting and fill it with fun things to do, and that the gameplay is not overtly repetitive to the point where I don't want to do it anymore. And I think Cyberpunk, and by extension Phantom Liberty, does a very good job with that. I think Phantom Liberty adds a nice little section to the map that is full and enjoyable, with new enemies and new things to see and explore, and kind of flesh out the world just a little bit more. Kind of make Night City more grandiose by involving a massive plot. But yeah, I still think the gameplay in this game is very fun. It's not that different from the base game at all. And I think the improvements and additions they did make was very fun. Like, I think the cyberware system, like the capping of it, is very good and kind of leans into kind of what at least Edge Runners set up. Like, I'm not a person who has ever played the tabletop game. I've played D&D very sparingly in my life, but I'm assuming it comes from that first, and I think it's a great change. I feel like it makes sense that to tie it in with what Edge Runners and probably the base game or the tabletop game sets up, is that the more iron you put on, the less human you will be. And if you take that too far, if you go too overboard, you will lose yourself and turn into the monsters that you hunt in the base game and in some sections of this game. But yeah, as we get into the game, like, I think the story is great. I wouldn't say great. The story is very good. Um, this sort of spy-ass theme of like you're sneaking in to all these places, all these reputable people, like these big shots in Night City and in the entire country and world, kind of doing these little spy missions. Try not to get seen. Try to make your impact as little noticeable as possible, while still trying to save the day, or use your own selfish goals. I think that spy theme is very fun, considering I played Cyberpunk very loud. Like, that's how I played the base game. I was very, very loud and aggressive. I was, and I still do that in like the non-stealth areas of this game. I will blow anybody up for whatever reason I want to. Like, I don't care. The wanton carnage and violence you can beget on any random thug is phenomenal. But it is nice to have this sort of section of the game slow everything down and kind of like, you need to be just a bit more measured in your actions if you want to get the optimal outcome. Because sure, you can do things loud, but it may not be the most optimal way to do things. And when you get into the game, a lot of the set pieces, like the giant crab or spider drone monster robot thing, phenomenal. Like, is it fun? I don't know if it's the most fun set piece, but absolutely the spectacle and kind of the action it does, and like all the visuals it sets up is a very good section. Like it's not really a QTE zone where you're just like, oh, button press, move the cutscene. But yeah, it sets up very good visuals and it kind of engages you in them. And I think that's a very good set piece. And I do think there are very good set pieces and sequences. I think the entirety of like the airport at the very end of the game is great. And I think there are very big sequences of this game that are very good. Like I think it does a very good job of kind of tying V, this mercenary on the rise, and turning him into a super spy working for the government, or a super spy working against the government, or doing whatever V really wants to do, because V can kind of do whatever. He just chooses one way or the other to do whatever he wants, whether he wants to be a hero and do the most good for the country, or he wants to be the hero who does the most good for this one girl and himself. Like, he's not the bad guy. It is simply working towards whatever interest he most perceives, because he's the hero of our story, because you are V. This is kind of, and I do enjoy that the choices are kind of toward how you want to react. There's several parts where you are betrayed, or people aren't telling you all the information, and you get blindsided by information that you know, kind of don't know. Like, surely you can intuit some of the things in the final twist of, Songbird only having one cure, and it's for herself. Like, oh no, I never thought of that. Like, I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? Like, if based on how the underratings in the game go, V can't have it all. Like, there's no happy ending for V and the people around him in this story. There's always going to be some heartbreak involved. And for V, it's doing all this. If you choose to betray the government, kind of helping Songbird out, doing all the heartbreak of investing into her and getting her to the finish line. And as she goes incapacitated, completely and utterly relying upon your goodwill, she tells you, hey, I got one cure, bud, and it ain't going to you. Like, and that's really a test of the character's kind of, I wouldn't say morality, but they're kind of their headspace, right? This girl's defenseless at this point. Like, you could just leave her there and she's probably just going to die. Or you could help her, get her into the spaceship and get her the help she needs so she can be free of the black wall and the thing that's killing her. Or give her back to Solomon and, get yourself that cure instead of her. She will live, quote unquote, in what capacity we really don't know based on how the game ends. And if we could really call what she's probably going through living. And you can live. However, those endings, that decision has its drawbacks. And I kind of want to get into like the things the game goes through, right? Like the sequences with the redheaded twins, very, very good. Like, they're not real characters, right? Like, they're kind of just there to exist and move the plot along. But they're not given that much screen time. Only a few minutes, really. But what the team does with them in such a short time kind of makes them endearing, because they're like so brash and obnoxious and kind of stuck up their own behinds. But they're kind of endearing, and maybe because they're maybe because the Aurora's attractive. I don't know. Maybe that's why. But like, there's just something about them there. Like, there's this mystique and appreciation that they're kind of just weirdos who have a minor role to play in this story in the grand scheme, but they're vitally important for what we, as the main character, want to get done. And having Solomon just cap them and just murder them, even though they were, quote unquote, as V wants to put it, innocent. I mean, sure, they're not innocent of all the crimes they do, but to V, they haven't done anything to V. So I V want them dead. V, at least how I played him, is very, kind of self-preservation-esque. Like, as long as you don't mess with V, V's fine. And so when it comes to Aurora and her brother, they didn't do anything to him. Like, they just gambled. They just had a nice little game of roulette. Like, and that was part of the mission. Like, they didn't need to die in V's eyes, but Reed and, kind of thought like, hey, they could be a detriment to us. There's no point having them around. Like, they don't serve they don't help us, and they could hurt us. So the pure value assessment is, it is better to remove the thing that's going to hurt you than keep it around, because it provides no benefit to them being alive. Them being alive doesn't really benefit Reed in that situation. So, and that's kind of like what I liked about this. Like, the cast all do things and they make choices and say things and interact with the character in V in such a way like where you either want to help them or want to hurt them. Like, that's what it comes down to. They will say and do things and make decisions that you, as the player, do not want to deal with. Like maybe some people got really attached to the twins. They're like, oh my god, I hate Solomon now for killing them. I'm going to do whatever it takes to betray him. Or they can see Songbird betray you. They're in. You're like, you know what? I'm so invested in the Songbird and want to help her out. I will find another way to do it. And as you know, not many options for Fee at the end there. That will sustain his life, but it's nice. It's nice, and the decisions that the game makes you take are very not a ton of them, not really a lot. There's a few, but they have a lot of impact. Of like, hey, this will dramatically alter how your missions are going to be structured for the rest of the game. How do you want to proceed? Do you want to work with the federal government or against them? Do you want to work with them and then betray them, or do you want to betray them then work with them, or do you just want to betray them entirely? Like it's a butterfly, right, or a diamond, however you want to put it, right? Like the endings, you will still reach an ending point, but there's several ending points, right? It's like a more elaborate point where it's rather than it's 1-2-1, it's kind of like 2-2-1-2-1, or like it expands out and then collapses back in on itself. And I find those endings particularly enjoyable, and I think it's a very nice little way to have a self-contained story in the grand scale of what Night City is, but also not greatly impact the story in such a way where you kind of can't progress through it without kind of being like, well, this certainly degrades the base game content, because it kind of feels like a nice little side mission for V, where you get to spend you can spend 10 hours, 12 hours, however long it takes you, kind of just screwing off in Dogtown, doing the little missions, working with Mr. Hands, and then getting on to spy stuff. Like, it's a nice little departure from the base game, even though I played it after on my save file because I didn't want to replay the whole game. I feel like it kind of is interwoven in such a way where like the stakes are not off-putting. Like what's happening in Night City is still a bigger deal than the majority of what happens in Dogtown, because Night City is kind of what V's focus on. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, what happens in Dogtown is more important, but to V's story, it's not. V is focused on keeping it alive and becoming the greatest in all of Night City. And his escapades in Dogtown will certainly impact that, but they're not the final decision. It's his dealings with Arasaka that ultimately will drive V's story, kind of like how it resolves. Unless, you pick the selfish option for V at the end of the game. And, that ending is the most depressing in all of them, honestly. Like, the coma and just leaving everyone behind, and kind of the bait and switch from the NUSA of telling you, oh, you'll be fine, you won't take long, and then 2 years later, everyone you know is gone. They've either died or moved out and want nothing to do with you, or they've moved on with their lives, and a lot of them, their lives are better. Kelly's in a much better place. Panam's not, Judy's married and gone off to live in Pittsburgh. Victor's kind of a shell of himself in his backwoods shop, but now he's under the oppressive corpos, Like, people are in different places. River's in a much worse place, right? Like, some of your companions are better off. Some of them are in much dire straits, where things have not progressed, and the lack of V in their lives has kind of pushed them in ways that aren't happy for him or for them. And it kind of all reflects on you that, in the end, V is done. Like, all of the companions he's built up over his time in Night City, they're gone. They either do not want anything to do with him, do not care about him, do not know about him, or are in no position to help him. He's kind of back at square one, except with a massive drawback that kind of helped V get a leg up. He's chromeless. Dude cannot do anything to impact him. All the big buffs you made to your body, giving yourself that extra regen, or strength, or armor, it's gone. V is just a random merc now, or a random thug, with no enhancements. He's kind of out here with his eyes and his data processing, but he can't, do mantis blades anymore, or gorilla arms, or can't do the double jump, or have, 400 armors on his legs. Like, all that is gone. V is just a man now. He's just, as the game ends it, another face in the crowd. And that's kind of what that ending shows. V is no longer the main character of the story. He is not this hero or villain who is going to save or ruin Night City. He is going to either work with or against Johnny Silverhand. He's just a guy. Kind of how he started the story. Just another mook trying to make his way in Night City. And he has no chooms to help him out. He's just a guy. He is just a dude. And, he kind of takes some solace and finds some peace in that. And it's an interesting ending, and it's probably of the two I've gotten, kind of went the devil path and then it faded into the internet. And this one, I much prefer to fade into the internet than the one I got. Like, I feel like, and I've seen the other endings, This one is the most depressing. I'm kind of in a state where I'm like, I I don't know, bro. This this ain't for me. It's not the ending I would pick for V. If anything, I'd rather V go out in a blaze of glory, trying to just do what's right and die, rather than becoming a shell and coming up back later, and everyone thinks he's gone. And if he comes back, they don't really care. And I think the ending for V is better to go out in that blaze of glory, dying, trying to achieve his end goal, than kind of going a route, getting his end goal in a different way, and then losing everything, and now kind of having to live as a shell of himself. I don't know. It kind of says something about me, where I think going out on top then is better than just to wither away and then try to make a comeback, and you just do not have the facilities for that, big man. Like it's an interesting quandary I think about. But enough of the philosophical side of Cyberpunk. Let's get into video games. I mean, the skill tree reworks are good. I mean, they're fine. I don't really have an issue with them. They make sense. They certainly align more with kind of like a more streamlined system, and I think they work. I didn't really tell too much of a gameplay difference, honestly, in the skill trees. Like, maybe it's just me not really paying that much attention in the base game, but like, and just kind of picking what sounded like it fit the best for my gameplay. But the game continued the same way. I feel like they didn't really deviate too much and made the gameplay that different, you know. But I enjoyed it. I think the trees are good. They make sense. I just don't really see any real massive gameplay differences. I didn't really make a broken build or whatever. Really try to abuse it. I just kind of went along and did what I wanted to. And the game wasn't difficult the first time, and Phantom Liberty wasn't really that difficult the second time. So, and I think it's kind of what this all brought on is kind of like all the callbacks to Edge Runners, Lucy, David having a perk around him. All the things that it kind of tries to tie in from the past and now. I enjoyed. I think it's a nice callback. I think Edge Runners certainly gave Cyberpunk a breath of fresh air. I'm sure if you look at the sales numbers and kind of the played numbers on Steam, like the Edge Runners certainly saved Cyberpunk or gave it a second wind and kind of made it into this place where it can be a profitable, acceptable game now, rather than just kind of be relegated to like broken garbage that no one will ever play because it's just broken. And I think it can help give people a second chance. And I think Phantom Liberty will keep that juice going. And I'm not sure what CD Projekt Red wants to go in the future, but I think Phantom Liberty was good. I think respecting the thing that saved its butt is good. It kind of shows that CD Projekt Red has some thanks to what Edge Runners did for them, so they kind of want to return the favor and try to integrate as much of Edge Runners into their story as they can without kind of compromising what they're trying to get at. So yeah, I really like Phantom Liberty. It's a good DLC. It may not be worth the price point. I don't know. I enjoyed it enough where I would probably pay the $30, but getting it on 2015 would be absolutely a steal. Um, I think the game's good. I thought Cyberpunk was good. I think Phantom Liberty just adds on to that, gives you a nice little dimension to play with, and I don't know what CD Projekt Red has a good plan going forward. I haven't really looked into that. I just kind of play the game. But yeah, I think Phantom Liberty was a good DLC. Kind of added a lot to the story. Kind of gave you a lot to do and a lot to impact the world with, and make some decisions that are very important. And while V probably shouldn't be the human being making these decisions, he's an important player at the right place at the right time. And it all just works out where he can become the person who the USA needs, whether to save them or to possibly hinder them in a massive way and put them behind the rest of the world. Or possibly put them in another corpo war, because that's always a great thing. But yeah, go play Cyberpunk. It's a good game.